All right, and welcome back. So last time we talked basically about the overview and where everything is, and we talked about the coordinate system being x and y, and then the direction system being in 180, negative 180. So today we're going to talk a little bit about moving, and I'm also going to add one little thing there, which is variables and kind of touch on it, okay? But we will get there for a little while. Anyway, the first thing we want to talk about is moving. And we talked a little bit about directions, and there's two types of movement, really. Oh, well, there's four types of movement, and let me bring them all in here. Well, a couple types. And so the first one we have is move 10 steps, and you'll notice that when you do that, it goes towards the right. However, if we change this, and we point it towards, I don't know, left, and we say move 10 steps, it moves to the left consistently. And why does it keep moving to the left? Well, because we have it in a forever loop. If we didn't have it in that, it would just move once. So it all depends on which direction you point it in. So I'm going to point it in 90 and tell it to move forever. So that moves 10 steps. Now, what if I don't want to move by what direction it's pointing in? What if I want it to be able to point up, for example, and still move to the right? Well, we can change the x by 10, and that will move it to the right, because, of course, on our Cartesian plane, positive x is this way, and negative x is this way. That also means that if we change negative x by, or x by negative 10, it will move it off to the left, and it's not moving in the direction it's pointing now. Likewise, if we wanted to do this with the y, we can change y by 10, and when we hit it, of course, it'll turn towards the 90, and it's not moving that way. And if we wanted to go down, we could use negative 10, because, of course, negative 180 is here, 180 is here, 240, 240. So these are things that we can do and we know. The other types of movement, aside from the move and change, are the go-to and the glide. Now, the go-to is a very useful one at the beginning of scripts, because it tells it to go to a certain point in the game. In this case, 0, 0, which is the center. But most games actually start you out somewhere near the left-hand side when you start a game. And so I usually do that at about negative 220 or so. And that will just instantly teleport you there. Now, let's say you've been playing the game a while, so on and so forth, and you don't want to use the instant jump. So GoTo does an instant kind of a jump to that location. Notice it just skips over there. If you want to make it more of a dramatic effect at some point in time, you can always use the glide, and that will slowly drag something somewhere, okay? And you can drag it out, so you can drag it for 20 seconds or something. And it will drag this from one point off to another, and you can see it slowly moving, and it'll move its way over to the center. So that's kind of the dragging thing, and it will move over to that point. Now, the good news is we can use some of this information to kind of make a movement system. For example, we have Vic Viper, and we want him to move. So we need to learn about something called a control. And this is actually moving into lesson 12. So I'll stop the video and we'll go into that in a minute. But the other thing is you have these turning movements, which will change the direction by a certain range, okay? So we can have it turn by 15 or 19, and it will turn by that a certain amount. We did this in the last video, so I'm not going to go over it too much, but it has that. We also have the point and direction, and we also have the point towards. And the point towards is really useful, especially when you have another sprite. So, for example, if I have Anna in our sprite, we can click back on Vic Viper and tell him to always point towards Anna. And you'll notice as I move Anna around, he kind of points and moves in that direction, or he points in that direction. So there's other ways you can do this. You can point towards things. So you don't just have to point in directions. You can also go to things. For example, go to Anna. We'll move him over to Anna. And of course, he is not on top. These work in layers, so if I wanted him to be on top, he would have to go to the front like that. Okay, and we can move him, but he'll jump back because the script's running. Okay, so that's one of the other things that you need to know when working with this is some of the motions. Okay, we also have these things called X position, Y position, and direction. And if you put them up on the screen, it will actually show you these kind of this information just by ticking off these boxes. So this is useful if you want to say, okay, wait, I wanted it over where again? And you can kind of just move it, put it down there, and then you can say, grab the go-to, put it up. Maybe you want it to be more specific and you can change it. Okay. So those are some things you can use towards movement. Now, I know I said I'd go into adding new sprites. I did that last time, so I don't really want to get into it too much. But I do want to go over this concept called multi-threading. And multi-threading just means that two current events can be running at the same time. So for example, I can either use this, or like for instance when the space is clicked. So I'm really hesitant to do this because it might get you to do something that I don't want you to do. But you can see we have two things here going. We have the flag and we have the space, and they can both run at the same time. So I can have this one running and then have the space running. So they can both do two things at one time. Now, this isn't the proper way to do some of these things, but you can do it. And you can see that two things can run at the same time. So you can actually have two events going. And this is a concept called multi-threading. The computer takes its time and it can run both at the same time. And so that was the last concept I really wanted to get into, because next we're going to move into the if-else way and kind of moving around. So we'll do this moving around, and that will be in our next story, but we're going to get rid of her for now. Goodbye, Anna. Say goodbye and goodbye. All right, so in our next lesson, we'll talk a bit about moving around, and I'll see you then.